Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining me today. It's Alan Barry Labucan with the Rocks and Stocks News Show. This is my weekend edition where I talk about the week that was, if you will, and give you some insights into what's going on with my top picks. And here I've got the gold chart. I'll talk about metals charts later, but as you can see, it's a tremendously bullish trend going from the bottom left to the top right. I think we're going to see the next year be much like that. So I obviously think gold is going a lot higher, but I'll talk about metals later. What I'll start out with today is I've got a few topics that I wanted to mention. They'll be brief, and then I'll get right into the stocks. The first thing that I wanted to talk about was it's the infamous anniversary of President Nixon temporarily ending the gold standard back in 1971. It didn't turn out to be temporary, and what it started was the fiat currency system experiment, if you will, that has resulted in the debt and fiat currency system breaking. It ultimately caused the death spiral of debt, and that's what happens when you go off the gold standard. It allows the central bankers of the world and the politicians to spend money like it's going out of style, create enormous debt, devalue their currencies. And ultimately, I think the only way to fix that is a return to some form of a gold standard. The BRICS nations are doing that. They've been buying a lot of gold over the last few years, and actually since basically since 2008. I think that they're going to continue to do that because it makes economic sense. Having the global economy built on debt and fiat currency that is constantly devaluing the purchasing power of those currencies, you need something to back that up that has reality, and that's gold, silver to a degree. And I ultimately think that this is going to take gold. It took 50 years to break the fiat currency and debt system, and I think it will take decades to fix it. Along the way, gold will become a more important backing of the debt and the fiat currencies. It is still very minimal. And as time progresses, I think it will become more significant. And I also think it will play an important role in international trade like it did in the past before Nixon temporarily ended the gold standard. Seasonal trends that I wanted to talk about quickly are, one that I think everybody has heard is sell in May and go away until Labor Day. And that has proved to be a poor strategy in 2025 for the metal stocks. Plenty are performing very well, and financings have been strong during the summer this year, which usually doesn't happen. So you've got strong uh, metal stock performance, strong financing, and this is setting up for, the autumn and this winter to be very strong as well. Another seasonal trend that often happens this year is the last 2 weeks of August, as everybody is sort of getting in their final um, holidays, if you will, prior to the school year starting out for kids. And there can be less volume, and it gets to be a bit of a soft period for the metal stocks, much like what happens in the last a couple weeks of December every year. And then you get out of those sort of holiday mentality, get back to business in September after when Labor Day comes around, and also in January. And these stocks have a way of performing very strongly. So I always like to bang the drum, especially hard during those periods in the last couple of weeks of August and the last couple of weeks of December, when not as many people are paying attention, because I think there's a lot of great opportunities. Which brings me to my list of companies to talk about. So, some of my picks had attention grabbing, I call them my attention grabbing metal stocks this week. And I wanted to talk about those first, and then I'll get into the rest of my picks. So, first up here is Amex Exploration. Amex is a sponsor of my reports. I'm very happy to have them on because I think they've got a fantastic project in Quebec. They have a what's called their Champagne zone, which is got a resource on it of about 800 and almost 900,000 ounces in the measured and indicated, another couple 100,000 ounces in the inferred. Of the measured and indicated, the average grade of that is 16.2 grams per ton of gold. That is tremendously high grade. There is not many projects like that in the world. And to have it in a place like Quebec is very positive. Now, you'll notice back here that the stock dropped off quite dramatically. And that was actually when they put out their mineral resource estimate. I think the market was expecting a lot bigger resource, but context is really important, and not all resource estimates are created equal. If you quickly plan on putting out a preliminary economic assessment after, well, the ink is drying on a resource estimate, you have to use fairly conservative metrics in your mineral resource estimate because you're going to quickly put economic analysis over that. And so uh, this caused some concern. And that concern lasted all the way. They had a good bump when they put out their preliminary economic assessment, but then it continued down to this yearly low here of around 82 cents. And since then, it's been improving quite dramatically. And what really started to come out here is how they plan about moving this project forward towards a future mine. One of those efforts is to do a bulk sample, and because the grade is so high on this project and there's mills nearby, they can ship the bulk sample over to these mills and actually make money off it. Most of the time in those kind of situations, you don't make money off of it. The other thing that they're doing is a preliminary economic assessment that will analyze the toll milling concept of their Champagne zone. And so people started to get a comfort level that, hey, this is near-term production here. It's not going to be one of these prolonged, 10 to 15 years to get this into production kind of scenario. And the stock started to improve. They did a financing of 35 million. I think the total number was 37 million, and closed it. And then it had another good run here. And I think what was favorably looked upon in that financing is not just the amount, what was done, but the amount that El Dorado Gold, which is a much larger company, took a significant amount of it. I think the total was around $7 million. That brings their ownership of Amex to about 17%. So I'm it's obvious that people looked at that as a ringing endorsement of the project by a much bigger company, um, but a bit much bigger gold mining company. And so it's definitely been well received. And what I'm most excited about is what they're going to do with that money. And stay tuned for more news out of this company. But their stock chart is actually a perfect example of a cup and handle. Here's the left side of the cup, came down, created the bottom of the cup, and it's been climbing up the right side of the cup. Got to this point here, and it had a very bullish handle and then had a significant breakout. So this is your classic cup and handle bullish trend. They also had a golden cross around here. So yeah, there's the Amex story exploration, and I think it would be a good thing for you to do do your homework on them. Aris Mining, this is the first, I think it's the first time I've ever talked about Aris Mining on the show. And they're a mid-tier, if you will, gold producer in Colombia that has a fantastic mine called Segovia that is a real cash generated, free cash flow generating machine. And this has helped them to build up a really large cash position. And the mine is operating very well. They had a recent downturn here, and this is an opportunity that I'm going to take advantage of and add Aris Mining to my mid-tier gold miners picks. It's trading right at the 50-day moving average. Catalysts are continued great operations at their Segovia mine in Colombia, plus develop their other mines. And this company is run by a very strong management team that has had great success in the past, building up companies from small miners to very large miners. And I think they've got fantastic assets. And this is a great opportunity when it has come off here recently from its all-time high to trade down to its 50-day moving average. I think this is a very opportune time, and I'm glad to add Eris to my picks of mid tiers. A new pick over the last month or so is Argenta Silver. Argenta Silver has only been a public company since the end of October of 2024. In that time frame, they've also created a very bullish uh, cup and handle, very short-term handle, and then a breakout beyond that. And what excites me about this project or this company is that they're drilling right now on a high grade silver project in Argentina. They're having tremendous success. They put out a lot of great results in the last month or so, which is why I added them to my picks in July. And what is quite exciting about this project is that it already has a resource, a historical resource of 50 million ounces of silver on the project. And a sort of a rule of thumb is you want to see these silver companies have resources of at least 100 million ounces. The reasoning behind that is that would give them about 10 years of production at 10 million ounces of silver. And so the question is, can they get to that 100 million and beyond? And I believe strongly that they will, based on the homework that I've done on the drill results that they have, on the zones that are open, on the financing that they have. And so I not only see that they can grow the resource in the immediate area where the known resource is, but then I see many targets outside of that. And in these epithermal vein systems, they often come in clusters. That resource has been based on one vein inside of what I think will ultimately prove to be a cluster. And the characteristics of the one vein speaks volumes about the potential for other veins in the cluster. And so I see that this company has lots of room to grow the resource on the known uh, resource and also in making new discoveries and exploring known veins that have been underexplored on the property and ultimately find a cluster that can be mined in Argentina. And so, they still have a very modest valuation, and they have lots of news coming out they'll have great news flow. They're doing a lot of drilling on a great project, and I think that they've got a outstanding future, and they've got off to a wonderful start as a publicly traded company since late October 2024. And I think they're just getting started actually. So take a look at Argenta Silver. You can see the symbols for all the companies I talk about in the top left there. All right, next company is Equinox. I talked about I talked about Equinox's quarterly report, and I talked about them last weekend on the show. Since then, they've gone up quite nicely. And I mentioned last week that I was on the verge of making them one of my mid-tier gold miner picks, and I'm going to do that now. And what's happened is that they've had a very important breakout here. And what I was really looking for is that in the early production at their Greenstone mine in Canada, they had some teething pains, if you will, as mines can often happen early in the production. And they changed management CEO to Darren Hall. Darren has had tremendous success in the past. Fosterville was sort of his brainchild, and he's a very good operator and has a very strong mining team around him. And now he's running the company. And how that happened was Calibre Equinox bought out Calibre because they were nearing the construction and commercial production at Valentine Lake Mine, which Calibre bought off another company. And this is sort of the modus operandi of Darren Hall and his team. And when the Greenstone mine of Equinox had some problems, they decided that they would bring Darren into the CEO position. I think that that's a tremendously important development, and it has helped them turn the corner at the Greenstone mine. And as Greenstone and the Valentine Lake mine get into full commercial production, this company will be about a 1 million ounce producer. Equinox is currently producing, I think, somewhere around 300 or 400,000 ounces prior to Greenstone. But when Greenstone and Valentine Lake get into production, they'll be producing close to 1 million or right around 1 million ounces of gold. But what's most important to me is that they will be a low cost producer. So that will generate a lot of free cash flow. And ultimately, I think that that will move their valuation much higher. So they're a mid-tier that's sort of having some teething pains on an important mine. They're bringing another one into full commercial production. So collectively, it'll take the analysts a few quarters to recognize that the acquisition of Calibre was a smart move and it works for both the shareholders of Calibre and Equinox. And I think ultimately the efforts and the full commercial production from Greenstone and from Valentine Lake, plus all the other assets that they have, they're rationalizing some of those, selling off non-core assets and focusing in on optimizing their most important mines. I think that that's ultimately going to lead the company to a lot higher valuation. And so I'm a big fan of Equinox at this point in time and ready to add them to my list of mid-tier uh, gold miners. All right. Next up is a junior exploration company that I am very excited about their future, which is a company called Golden Cross. As you can see, they just got out of the box a few months ago, earlier this year, and have been performing very well. I think I started picking them in the report somewhere around here, around the 50-cent level. I didn't pick them because I thought they would go to from 50 cents to 66 cents. I think that they've got the potential to have a breakout winner in the exploration. And why I say that is they've got a project in Australia, not too far from the great Fosterville mine. And Southern Cross below them to the immediate south has also had a lot of success. And now they're sort of a new player in that area, but they've got a large land package that had seen a significant amount of historical production at the surface. And these orogenic gold systems have very deep roots. And now they're drilling underneath those old workings to go after the depth potential. Now, in an orogenic gold system area like Fosterville, uh, there's certain characteristics that you look for. One of those is the age of the rocks. You need these very old Archean rocks as part of the system, and then you need uh, these what are called faults or structures, shear zones. These are where the earth kind of has cracks in it, and the fluids from these that carry the gold in these orogenic gold systems use those cracks to make their way up towards the surface or to the surface in the case of what Golden Cross has. And this has all the characteristics of an important orogenic gold exploration area. And I think they're at the very earliest days of making important discoveries. They've drilled some holes. They like what they see. The assays are pending, and the company is very well financed. They do a great job with digital marketing. They're constantly out there telling their story, and it's a great story to hear. For a brand new sort of publicly traded exploration company, they're well funded. They've got financing covered until 2026. I think they've got two drill rigs on the property. They're going to be drilling a lot of holes. They do expect to start seeing assay results sometime in September. And I think that they're going to have very impressive news flow going forward. And so, yeah, those are the key reasons I started recommending or started picking Golden Cross, and I'm going to try and get their management on for an interview because I want my audience to hear more about them, but I'll do my best to sort of tell you the story. And it's a great story of exploration, not far from a great mine. One of the world's greatest is Fosterville for high-grade gold and free cash flow machine. And they're looking for another Fosterville, and we'll see how it goes. But I like their chances. So take a look at Golden Cross Resources. All right, the next one up is Kirkland Lake Discoveries. KLDC is their stock symbol. And I picked up on this company when they made news that, and I did an interview with their management, and I bought some stock in the company. And what I really like is that they have this. They're in a elephant country where you find really big deposits, and they have this geophysical anomaly that is massive. Okay. And, a lot of companies start out with very massive geophysical anomalies, and then as they drill them, they get smaller and smaller. Whereas mines are different. As you drill them and do more science on them, they get better and better. And why I think that this will be the former, not the latter, is because in their earliest drill holes, assays are still pending, They have found sulfides, massive sulfides and disseminated sulfides, and that's what hosts the metals in these in what they're looking for. And so they have made a discovery. I mean, it might be a little early to call it a discovery. When I see massive and semi-massive sulfides, I consider that a discovery, but some technical people will want to wait until the assay results are out, and that's fine by me. I think they're going to have this is going to emerge as a new discovery that could turn into an important discovery very rapidly. They've got a really strong team involved running this company, and it's in a great area. I also like a gold target that they have not far to the east of where they're drilling for base metals and possibly precious metals as well at where they're drilling now, and then I'm really fond of this gold target that they have to the east of that. But yeah, it's a sort of a brand new pick for me in a brand uh, new. I think it's going to prove to be a discovery hole. I guess before I can say that, we gotta see the assay results, but I'm pretty optimistic that they will deliver. And the reason that I say that is they've done a significant amount of surface sampling, and the same things that they're seeing in the drill core they saw on the surface samples with the mineralization. So and the grades. And so, I think there's a pretty good chance that they got something serious there. And we'll just keep following it as it evolves. Another company that I'm very fond of and have recently taken a position and made them a pick is Norsemont. Norsemont is uh, a happy story for me already. Once the first iteration of Norsemont that was led by Mark Levy, the CEO of Norsemont Mining, was Norsemont 1.0, I call it. I picked them early in their success, finding a porphyry in Peru, and followed them through to when they were taken over for around a $500 million. That was during the last great metals bull market. 2001 to 2011 was the last great bull market, and they were one of the beneficiaries of that bull market. And I actually think Mark and his team have a project here that will be a bigger winner than they had in Peru. Why I say that is they're starting out with a 2.5 million ounce resource, and they recently did a financing to get back to drilling that, because I've done a lot of homework on this project that they have, and it has very exciting fundamentals for me as a project. What I mean by that is that what the drilling was vertical primarily into a system where the mineralization is coming up through vertical events. So that is not the most optimal way to drill it. But even though they drilled it in a not optimal way, it still has 2.5 million ounces of resources of high grade within the first 70 meters that can be open pit mined with the oxides and then get into the sulfides below that. But what I am, the sulfides are categorized as sulfides because that's how the regulatory framework is these days, but not all sulfides are created equal, although they're categorized the same. And in their case, in the NI 43-101 report that they did, they note that the gold is attached to the sulfides, not encased inside the sulfides. This makes a very dramatic difference when you're trying to recover that gold. If it's encased, you need a lot of temperature and heat to recover that gold in when it's attached to, you can use crushing and gravity separation and flotation and other methods to easily recover that gold. So I think that these two factors are being underappreciated in what they have. And so more metallurgical work will help with the sulfide story, and vertical or angled holes will help with the resource being calculated based on vertical holes into vertically mineralizing system. And you can cut across those vertical holes and actually connect several holes. And when a modeler of resources does these kind of models, and let's say you got a high grade hole that's vertical like this, and then you got to go over 100 meters and 100 meters to see another hole. Well, when the modeler does that, he only gives you credit for about 2 meters on either side of that vein. So this can, confine or put a very modest modeling or conservative modeling on that particular hit. Whereas if you go in with or an angled hole, you can actually cut across those three holes, and now the modeler can add in and can sort of connect it all, which adds, a couple hundred meters instead of a couple meters to a great drill hole. And another thing that a modeler has to do statistically when they analyze, say you've got that same high grade hole, well, they have to put conservative caps on the grade, cap the grade, and this has a way of underreporting the actual grade. So that's another benefit of going in with an angled hole is now you've got more pierce points across it, and that gives the statistical person doing the analysis the ability to be more liberal with the cap. And so what I'm getting at is I think with a strategic drill plan, they can unlock more ounces and higher grade within the 2.5 million ounce resource that they already have. Now, I would also stress that this is in the first 70 or 80, that big resource is in the first 70 or 80 meters, which suggests that there is a very powerful, from the surface, sorry, that suggests there's a very powerful system that brought that up to the surface. And so these are epithermal veins, and epithermal veins go down a lot more than 70 meters. The rest of the veins have not been drilled into. So those angled holes can actually start getting deeper and cut across those veins at deeper. And the beautiful thing about these epithermal veins is as you go deeper into them, you often see that you get into the most optimal place in the vein called the boiling zone, where the uh, the uh, um, the temperature and the pressure is perfect for gold deposition inside of that vein. And so that's still wide open. And even on an even bigger perspective is epithermal veins come off of porphyry systems, which can be very big. Okay. And they have drilled a couple holes that suggest that they have a porphyry there as well. And sometimes off of those porphyries can come what are called breccia pipes. And these breccia pipes can be very high grade and make mines all on their own. And so they've got a couple holes into a breccia pipe that is wide open, and I think is going to be another important target. And I'm only talking about this one specific area on their project where they have the past producing mill. They've got mining permits on that are presidential decrees, so they last forever. And then they've got other targets on their area that also have permits on them. that are permitted that look like they could also have other discoveries. So this is a a tremendous story that is really underappreciated so far, but I think it could turn into a very impressive project that catches the attention of a lot of really smart investors and the imagination of retail investors. And I'm really looking for, so they've closed off one tranche of financing and they got another tranche or two to close it. That should happen all over the next 10 days or so. And then they'll be loaded up with cash to get in there and do drilling. And I'm very much looking forward to hear the news about the drilling, where they've already got permits to drill, and the plans on how they're going to tackle this exceptionally good project that I think is a company maker, a mining company maker, actually. So there you go. That's the Norsemont story. So another company that's in exploration that I'm a shareholder of is a company called Nuvau Minerals. They've only been trading since December of 2024. And what caused this big move here was they have a 1,300 square kilometer project in Quebec. And this was a project they got from Glencore, one of the world's largest base metal mining companies. The Matagami project has been mined for base metals for 60 years, right up until about 2022 by Glencore. And Glencore was operating a mine here. And they decided that it wasn't big enough for them. As a lot of these majors, they have to rationalize their various assets, and if it's not a a core asset for them, they want to focus on their core assets. And so this project became available a couple of years ago, and Nuvo got it. But it's in the Abitibi region, which is one of the greatest gold mining camps in the world. And but it has never been explored for gold because it had this long history of base metal mining. And they drilled a hole not far from what's called the Bracemac McLeod underground mine that they intend on bringing back into production for base metals. But they had heard historically about some potential for gold just to the outside of their underground workings that were put in for the base metals. So they drilled a hole into it, and sure enough, they hit a quartz vein that's loaded up with visible gold. And so if you find something like that in the Abitibi, it has a way of catching a lot of people's attention, which it has done. Now the assays are still pending, but the assays are pending, the company has gone in there and done more drilling to follow up on that discovery hole. And I'm very optimistic that they've got an important emerging discovery of high grade gold in the Abitibi. And that has a way of catching everybody's attention in the gold space. Plus, they've got this other growth catalyst, which is their base metals story. So collectively, for a company with such a low valuation, I think it's something like 40 or 50 Canadian million. This could be a breakout success, and I'm a shareholder of it, a happy shareholder of it, and I think that they've got a great future ahead of them on base metals and precious metals in one of the greatest jurisdictions in the world, Quebec, with a massive land package in the Abitibi. It's got all the mining infrastructure. The mill is on the property. Yeah, great future for Nuvo. Check them out. Okay, so the next company I'm going to talk about is Power Metallic Mines. They've really burst onto the scene in the last year or so because they've made a discovery of very high grade copper, and it's a polymetallic mine project. Sorry for the Freudian slip there. I actually think it will be a mine of the future. And I recently did an interview with their CEO, Terry Nickel, and what they have is a very high grade system that looks has the geological characteristics of one of the great polymetallic mines in the world, which is Norilsk in Russia. So, I mean, obviously, I'm not saying that they've got another Norilsk, but even having a partial success like Norilsk could mean that this company would have a multiple a valuation multiples of where it is right now. And I think that they've got something very special. It's not often that you see 10% plus copper and in several holes, and they're really sinking their teeth into it. In addition to having a great discovery, they've been able to attract one of the world experts in these kind of systems to join the company, and that in itself is a heck of an endorsement of the quality of the project. But they've also got some of the Hall of Fame mining people that have made their fortunes in mining: Robert Friedland, Rob McEwen, Gina Reinhardt, other wealthy investors that are billionaires are invested in this. And so, these kind of people don't get attracted to a company because it's small potatoes. It's because they've already established with the drilling that they've got an important discovery, and it looks like it will get more important very rapidly. What they're doing right now is they kind of softened up while they were waiting to get their new drilling season underway, and that is now underway, and they've been improving with higher lows and higher highs. I love seeing that happen, and they're going to have a lot of drilling done. They're going to have a lot of assay results to report. So I think the company is going to have very good news flow. And you want to take a look at Power Metallic Mines, PNPN. Okay, another company I'm just going to quickly mention is Snowline Gold. Uh, Now, I totally missed the boat on this company because, as you could see, not that long ago, it was a 20 some cent stock, and now it's a $39.34 company. What I wanted to talk about is they announced on Friday that they've done a $80 million bought deal financing. And I've missed the boat on this. I'm not gonna make it a pick. I wanted to talk about it as an example that when you got a great project, a lot of money can get thrown at the company, and I think that watch it closely on Monday when it opens, because I think that this could cause another wave up in their stock. And just wanted to mention Snowline as an example of that. Okay, now I got to really put my skates on, as they say, and get rolling because we got to get through all my picks. As always, uh, as is always the case, I start with my major gold miners. For a long time, I only had, well, one major gold miner. And then a few months ago, I added Newmont. And then just recently, I've added Pan American Silver. So my top gold miner since early 2024 was Agnico Eagle Mines. They were trading at about $60 when I first picked it. Closed on Friday at $184. They're just a free cash flow machine. They keep making record after record in free cash flow. Plus, they're having no problems replacing what they mine with new out deposits. They're increasing their production, bringing down their cost. They're already producing gold for less than most of their peers. And yeah, I expect this is a perfect example of why you want to be a stock picker in the gold space because, as you can see, the stock is up about 300%, while gold is up about 30 or 35%. So when you find a great company like an Agnico Eagle, it's a great way to get exposure to gold with less risk because they are a major gold miner, one of the top major gold miners in the world, and they're really on the key metrics. They're firing on all cylinders, and so that's what you get. You get outperformance of gold, you get outperformance of the index it's measured against. And yeah, Agnico Eagle is for the investor that wants exposure to gold, um, but wants torque with minimal risk. Agnico Eagle is your perfect example. I consider them the best in breed major gold miner. And yeah, that's the Agnico Eagle story. So, not too long ago, in early April, I added Newmont to my list. Now, they were an underperformer relative to Agnico Eagle for sure, and many of their peers. But back in April, I saw that they were about to go through a golden cross. And fundamentally, I liked what they had done, which was to sell off their non-core assets and then focus all of their attention on their tier one assets to optimize those. Plus, they had bought out Newcrest, and so it takes a few quarters to fully digest that kind of a takeover. But all of these things had transpired, and having seen that the stock was going towards a golden cross, I decided to make them a pick, and I'm glad that I have because they were trading for around $45 when I made them a pick. They're now trading at $69, and I think that their efforts to optimize their production, or sorry, their tier one mines, and have fully digested the takeover of Newcrest, I think is putting them in a very good growth profile. Now, interesting enough, because they sold non-core assets, their production has come down, but their free cash flow has gone up, partially because they're optimizing their tier one mines, but secondly because the price of gold is going up. So this has a very good effect on their free cash flow, which is what I measure every company against when they're a miner or even in the tech or major Wall Street stocks. It's all about free cash flow to me. And I think they've got a great runway for free cash flow growth going forward. And another reason I like having picked them is because uh, they are, I call it the Newmont effect. Newmont makes up about 12% of the GDX, which is when generalist investors look at gold mining, they look at Newmont and they look at the GDX. And if Newmont is going up, they have a positive sentiment. And if the GDX is going up, they have a positive sentiment towards, they say, oh, gold's doing good because the stocks are going up. And so this Newmont effect is also very positive all along the food chain of gold stocks. So I also like that the Newmont effect looks very bullish for this gold stock from top to bottom sector. So that's why I picked Newmont when I did. Okay, Pan American Silver is my most recent pick. Um, and I picked them right about here, I think. This is the US listing. As you can see, they've gone from the lower left of the chart to the upper right. Uh, and they are what I consider the best in breed silver miner. Okay, so silver, they're the equivalent of Agnico Eagle is in gold, what Pan American Silver is in silver mining. Now, silver has not done as well as gold, but I think it's going to head in, or it's about to go into a very bullish market that takes it into new record highs. And in that environment, it will be very positive for the bottom line of Pan American Silver as well as for the stock performance. And I try not to be a shotgun kind of guy and try to pick more with a rifle. I only have three major miners as picks currently. Two of them are in gold, Agnico Eagle and Newmont, and I knew I needed a silver one, so that's why I picked Pan American Silver of late. And I'm very bullish on where things are headed for this company as silver goes into a bull market that catches the imagination of generalist investors worldwide. And Pan American Silver is a go-to stock for those people that want exposure to silver with added torque and minimal risk. So that's the Pan American Silver. Now I'm going to move down into my mid tiers. Currently, until today, I only had two mid tiers. As I mentioned earlier, I'm going to add Equinox and Aris Mining really is that as well. So two is going to become four, but the two existing, one of those is Alamos Gold. They're one of the premier mid-tier miners to me. I picked them way back here when they were trading at about $11 and a half US. They're trading at $26 as of the close on Friday. They've been kind of trending sideways with gold over the last few months, but I think gold is ready to break out. And this is a very good mining company, very well run mining company. Gold, they make a lot of free cash flow. They're pumping that free cash flow into new mines and adding to increasing their production uh, and decreasing their costs. And in the not too distant future, they're going to be a 1 million ounce gold producer with a cash cost or free all in sustaining cost that is well below the average cost of the their peers. And that combination puts them in a very good position. And they've got lots of catalysts on the mining operations, on the free cash flow, on what they're doing with that free cash flow to accretively add value. When they spend their money, they want to make it worth more money. And that's exactly what they're doing. I think that they've got the catalysts on the operation, and of course, the catalyst with gold heading higher, which I think is we're on the verge of gold making another important breakout. And so, yeah, Alamos is my premier mid-tier gold miner, and it has been for since early 2024, and it continues to be. And I think they've got a fantastic future ahead of them. All right, my other mid tier is Orla. Prior to this report today, Orla Mining, as you can see, I've actually picked this since it was about a $2 company. And why I picked it back here in 2019 was because they were bringing their Camino Rojo project into production. And I love getting into a story before it goes up the right side of the Lassonde curve when they bring a project into production, and especially when Pierre Lassonde himself is in the bought the stock prior to them bringing it into production. So They also had an important breakout here because they were one of the beneficiaries of buying a non-core mine from Newmont that is maybe non-core to Newmont, but is a company maker for a company the size of Orla Mining. And then recently they had drill results out and good developments on their permitting of their railroad project in Nevada. So they've got production going on at Camino Rojo in Mexico and at Musselwhite in Ontario, Canada. And next up is their railway. I always get them mixed up, but their project in Nevada that they'll move towards production. So very aggressively run company that spends their money well when it comes to mergers and acquisitions. And I expect they've got a great pipeline already, but I think that they could be a buyer of assets as well, and bringing more production online. Yeah, I just got a lot of good things to say about Orla Mining. Have been saying them for quite some time now, and I think I will be for quite some time into the future. All righty. So now I've moved through, and here's my appearance of my what do you call these things? I don't use clipboard. I'm really proud of myself getting so organized that I have a clipboard now. It had its first appearance last Sundays, but it's helping me to prepare for these shows. And so now I'm going to move into my junior gold miner, and then I'm going to have a chat about some trends that I see. So I've got my junior gold miners to talk about next, and then my explorers. So the junior gold miners, I've talked about a lot of big companies so far. Now I'm going to talk about a very tiny company called Borealis Mining. Borealis is a sponsor of my shows, and I'm a shareholder of the company. And as you can see in the stock chart here, they've had a pretty good start of a cup. Well, a left side of a cup, the bottom of a cup, and now they're going up the right side. And what's helping them go up the right side and recently have a golden cross is that they've started small scale production on their property. It's a fully permitted mine with an ADR mill plant to extract gold. They've got a leach pad already permitted and everything. And right beside that, they had a stockpile. And that material had never been put on the leach pad to extract the gold. And so they brought in a contractor to crush that material and put it onto the leach pad. That's going now, and they're getting ready to start. Once it goes through the leach pad, then it goes through their ADR plant, and all of this is permitted. And then they create gold doré bars right on the property. So this initial production from the stockpile is not going to make it's going to not going to make them a big producer, but it is for a small. It's sort of the baby steps to becoming a junior gold miner. After that kind of a scenario will keep them busy into pouring a little bit of gold from the stockpile for the next year or so. And concurrently with that, they're also moving towards bringing some of the known pits on the property that have also been permitted to back into production because they think that there's unmined material there that can also produce gold. And so that will, concurrently keep them busy throughout 2026. They're also doing exploration for new deposits to mine. This project is, although it's been in production in the past when gold prices were a lot lower, It's really an underexplored project when you consider that they've got a 20 square kilometer alteration zone on the property. And only little pods have been mined in that overall huge alteration zone. So, what an alteration zone is when the fluids that bring the gold up towards the surface hit that country rock, it chemically alters that. And that's what's called an alteration zone. Theirs is 20 square miles, and it's one of the largest in all of Nevada that's underexplored. And so not only do they have a path to becoming a junior gold miner on their Borealis project, they all mine, they also have exploration potential to be also another driver. And they've acquired another company that was underappreciated that can be a bolt-on to their Borealis mine and bring the material from that project over to their Borealis mine. So, yeah, this is a junior gold miner that is making baby steps to become a official junior gold miner and then grow from there. And a lot of companies talk about that they want to do that, but this company also has the founder of Kinross as their executive chairman. And so they've got the Kelly Malcolm who runs the company has the sounding board to grow the company into a much larger company, and I think that's what they're going to do, and they're going to be focused in Nevada. And there you go. That's the Borealis story. McEwen Mining is one of the in my opinion, it has one of the most impressive value propositions of all the companies that I follow that are junior gold miners. Why I say that is they currently are producing about 135,000 ounces of gold from their mines, and they are making the efforts to increase that. And just on that alone makes them very undervalued for the price that the company is currently giving them relative to their peers that produce around the same amount. But the real big and phenomenal value in the company is their copper project in Argentina. It is one of the top 10 undeveloped copper projects in the world. And um, it is also in the lowest cost quartile for undeveloped uh, projects, copper projects in the world. The world needs more uh, cop needs more copper mines due to the tremendous demand that's coming for copper and the weakness in the supply chain. And Rob McEwen, because he's a serious gold guy, he often looks at a copper project and looks at it as what would this look like as a gold mine? And as a gold mine, it would be producing about 700,000 ounces of gold at an all-in sustaining cost of like six or $700 per ounce produced. It would be, you know, just a phenomenal gold mine. And it will be a phenomenal copper mine, but putting it into that relative terms of what it would look like as a gold mine is quite overwhelming, actually. And so for a miner that is, as I said, it is my highest conviction pick for a value proposition because I think it has tremendous unlocked value in the company already, and it's being valued at a discount. And so, Yeah, I think it has a lot of good performance ahead of it. Okay, the next one is Sierra Madre Gold and Silver. There's sort of a junior gold miner that I think has a very bright prospect to grow into a much larger gold miner. They're just a new pick in the last, let's say, month or two. You got to look at my past reports to pin me down on exactly when that is. And I didn't pick them because I thought, I'll get a 10 or 20% move in the stock. I picked them because I think that they've got a profile in their pipeline to grow into a much larger company. And I like the fundamental developments at the company. I like that they have a great pipeline of gold, silver, and other metals, and that they are making efforts to increase their production and reduce their costs. And so that's a good recipe to grow into a much larger company, which is exactly what I think that Sierra Madre Gold and Silver will do. And that's why I recently added them to my picks. And yeah, I think that they benefit from the price of gold and silver going higher and the fundamental developments that are happening on their projects. And so collectively, metals get stronger. They keep doing good with their fundamentals. And I think that this company grows into a much larger company. They recently got some financing done, so they're in a good financial position. And yeah, that's why I like Sierra Madre, gold and silver. All right, now that's my junior gold miners. I only have three in that category. Um, I would like to find more, but it's hard. There's not a lot of great stories out there. Although metals are getting a much stronger, it's pretty surprising that there's not, a tremendous amount of companies to choose from, which is bullish for the metals because it means that the pipeline is tight, and that's very bullish for the price of those metals. Now, I'm very bullish on developers and explorers. And fortunately, I've been able to find more of those. For example, in developers, I've got two, four, six, eight, nine developers. And I'm going to save the best for last in this case. First off, well, actually, I'm going to start out with a pretty strong one. I talked about them earlier, which is Amex Exploration. And so I'm not going to go into them a great deal here. Oh, sorry, put the wrong symbol in. Amex, ah, got to put the right symbol in, folks. Amex Exploration, looking at the stock chart, cup and handle, golden cross, handle over here, broke out above the handle, did a big financing. Um, El Dorado Gold, a big gold miner, now owns 17% of it. And they did a big chunk of that financing, of that $37 million financing. Stay tuned for what they're going to do with that money. I not too long ago did an interview with Victor Cantore shortly after they announced the closing of that financing. As always, I recommend people do their homework on companies, and that's a good way to start your homework on Amex. You can go to my YouTube channel at Rocks and Stocks News, and you'll find that interview there. Or you can also go on my Substack at rocksandstocks.substack.com, and you'll find that interview and all my reports on there. There you go. That's Amex. Um, Arizona Metals. Arizona Metals is a new pick that I picked after the stock got hammered. because after they put out a mineral resource estimate that the market didn't like, they were expecting more. The reason that they came out with a conservative mineral resource estimate was because they also were doing a preliminary economic assessment that's pending. I think the stock is oversold here quite significantly. And I think the preliminary economic assessment is going to come out with really good numbers in it. And this is a VMS system. They come in clusters. They've got room to grow the resources, not just on the main area where they have produced a resource estimate, but then around in other project or other targets around there as well. So collectively, they have a very, I think, underappreciated. They disappointed the market. Well, I think the market disappointed itself because it was looking for a larger resource while the company had already let everybody know that they were doing a preliminary economic assessment. So anybody that does their homework on these kind of companies knows that the resource estimate has to be conservative when you're going to do a preliminary economic assessment right after it. So yeah, there's no reason to be disappointed, but that's what happens in markets sometimes. And I think that this one's oversold and is primed to make a turn the corner and get much better valuation. The next company is Blackrock Silver. This company, earlier when I was talking about a silver company, I talked about the the rule of thumb with silver companies is when they get to a resource that is around 100 million ounces, because that gives you a the reason that rule of thumb is used in the silver space is because it gives you 10 years of production at 10 million ounces of gold or silver. And if you produce that at you make a lot of, if you produce it at a low cost, you make a lot of money. The company has that size, has reached that level already, and they're doing work to expand on that. They have one of the highest grade resources under of silver anywhere in the business, and they've done preliminary economic assessments that shows very good metrics. And that combination of what they have already in a resource, what the preliminary economic assessment is suggesting, the work that they're doing to expand the resource, and then do more economic assessments down the road, I think gives them a very good news flow going forward. And I think their project is being underappreciated. And therefore, I like this company a lot and suggest you do your homework on Blackrock Silver. The company is very good at telling their story on using digital marketing. Their CEO does a lot of interviews, and you can do, I suggest you do your homework on Blackrock Silver if you're interested in silver development companies, because as I said, they've got the highest grade undeveloped silver resource in the world. And it's in Nevada. It's right beside a town, so it's got great infrastructure and ability to be a very profitable silver mine. And yeah, that's why I like Blackrock Silver. All right. Next one is Emperor Metals. Hold on a second here. AUOZ is their symbol. Uh, Good cup and handle here. Broke out from that cup and handle. Had another good run when they put out their mineral resource estimate. I like the business, I like the resource that they have, and I like the business plan because they're in the Abitibi, they've got mills, undercapacity mills all around them. And they're looking at bringing the mining their rock from their project and then having it processed in one of the nearby mills. So then they don't have to build that, and that can keep your capex, your capital cost to build a mine way down, and lead you to near-term production. And that's what I see Emperor Metals doing. After the mineral resource estimate, it has now come back down to the 50-day moving average, which I think is a bargain here. And they're drilling, they're doing more work, they're advancing the project towards near-term production. And I'm a fan of what they have. I'm a fan of their business plan. I'm a fan of the guy that's running the company, John Florek. He was part of the team that brought the found and brought the one of Canada's great mines, Detour Lake, into production. So he knows what he's doing on all those fronts. And yeah, that's what else do I need to say? Like this company a lot. AUOZ. Okay, now I'm going to move to my only pick for a company that has a copper development project. Generation Mining is the same name of the company. It's gone through a cup handle, and I think it's ready to break out because their copper palladium project is underappreciated, and platinum and palladium have both recently made important breakouts. And I focus on I prefer to play metals through the metals companies, the stocks. And when it comes to looking for a project that has palladium and platinum on it, it's very difficult. And to add into the mix that they've got gold, copper, platinum, or sorry, it's mainly a copper and palladium mine that's permitted and feasibility studies and all that jazz. And it also has a platinum kicker. So it will also produce platinum as well. And so finding a good company that has exposure to platinum and palladium plus copper, which I'm also bullish on, there's very few of those. In fact, one, Generation Mining. So there you go. That's why I like them. I did an interview with the company not about a month or two ago, and Jamie Levy is their CEO. I had a nice chat with him. I advise you to start your homework there and then go to their website and check out the whole story because they have a very compelling story, but they're really not getting the proper love that they should be getting. And that's what creates opportunities in mining stocks, and Generation Mining has one of those. Okay, the next company, well, McEwen Mining is not just a junior gold miner, they're also the best copper development company, in my opinion, out there. I already talked about them earlier, so I'm not going to talk about them again, but they are my highest conviction copper development company. And as I made the case earlier, I think they've got one of the best value propositions of any of the companies that I follow. So that's the McEwen Inc. story. MUX is their stock symbol. The next company is Meridian. This is a developer of high-grade copper and gold in Brazil. And it's I love high grade, especially when that high grade copper, gold and copper is right at the surface, open pitable in a mining friendly jurisdiction in a country that wants more mining, where all the major gold miners are mining in that country. That makes for a hell of a proposition. That's what they have. That's what they've got. And yeah, I'm a big fan of Meridian. They've been in a nice trend. They kind of had a shallow cup and handle here, and then have broken out from that. Went through a golden cross here. Have been putting out a lot of good news here. As it's moving up here, they got a lot more pending. Yeah, and it's trading above the 50-day moving average, and I think it's just primed for a breakout. And yeah, that's the Meridian Mining story, why I like it and why I think you should do your homework on them. Earlier at the beginning of the show, on the when I talked about companies that call them my attention grabbing metal stocks, Nuvau Minerals, where I'm a shareholder, has recently made a good breakout, and this breakout was because of the discovery of a quartz vein with lots of visible gold in it. Those assays are still pending. And this breakout here is because they announced that they've got two new drill holes to follow up on that discovery. I advise you to go earlier in the report. You'll see the link to the time when I talked more extensively about Nuvau Minerals. But they've got pending assays in what I think is going to prove to be a discovery hole of high-grade gold in the Abitibi region of Quebec. And now they're doing follow-up drilling on that discovery hole. So it's a good time to do your homework on this brand new traded company. I talked about the whole thing earlier, so go check that out. So now I am down to my number one. Silver development story. Uh, Vizsla Silver. This company has a tremendous project, high-grade silver and gold vein system in Mexico. Um, they have done a preliminary economic assessment on it that the numbers are off the charts. If you use current silver and gold prices, they have a triple digit internal rate of return. The capital costs are about $225 million to bring it into production. They currently have about $200 million in the bank, and the capex using current gold, silver, and gold prices would be the payback of the mine construction would be within 6 months. You just don't hear of that very often. They've been a sponsor of my reports for about a year now. I'm so over the moon to have them as a sponsor because I think that this company is going to grow into the next major silver producer. They could be in production as early as 2027. And they need to get some permits. That's being worked on. They are estimating that because it's an underground operation, that getting permits should not be a problem. And I don't think it will. I live in Mexico. I live a couple hundred miles from this project. I know that this whole district, region, if you will, of Mexico is very pro mining and it gets a lot of its economic value from mining. And this project will create a tremendous amount of jobs in at their Panuco area. And yeah, it's an ideal underground mine in Mexico that has tremendous metrics on it. They are a sponsor, as I mentioned earlier, so keep that in mind. I did an interview not too long ago with their head of exploration, VP exploration, uh, Jesus Velador. We talked a lot about the exploration potential So they're concurrently building to moving towards building a mine and also doing important exploration. So they've got two catalysts for growth, plus, of course, silver and the metals prices of silver and gold going higher. Uh, so as always, do your homework, and that is a great place to do your homework, is to go and find that interview with Jesus Velador, and and I've also done several interviews with Mike Connort. They You can find all of those on my YouTube channel at Rocks and Stocks News, or go to my my Substack at rocksandstocks.substack.com, and you can find that information as well. So that's the Vizsla story. Silver unicorn in the making. I believe, as I said, that they'll be the next major silver miner, and I really think they got a great future. Goliath Resources has they are my highest conviction pick and have been for over a year now. I actually started picking them about 2 years ago when they were at about 60 cents a share. Now they're at 219. But over the last year or so, I've been separating them from other explorers by saying they're my highest conviction high grade gold exploration company with an important discovery. I make those sort of characteristics important because they are to me. It's not just an explorer that may find something, they have found something, and it is an important discovery. I think it's one of the most important high grade gold discoveries in the Golden Triangle of British Columbia, Canada, in in several decades, actually. I think it will prove to be a more important discovery than the Brucejack discovery, the Valley of Kings, that made Pretium go from when I picked it at about $3 to a $19 takeout. And it could rival or be in the same sentence as the great Eskay Creek discovery that was made in the 1980s and was just a spectacular mine. And the company's doing a lot of exploration now. Last weekend, and last week and weekend, I did an important chat about them that you can find in my YouTube channel. And what caused this move was the discovery of what is being coined the Goldilocks 1 zone. It was just spectacular. And I think they've recently found their Goldilocks 2 zone. And so stay tuned. The assays are pending on that. I talked a lot about it on my last weekend show of why I think that this is Goldilocks 2. I may, in fact, once they split the core and they do the analysis of the visible gold, I might do another video just on that alone. I'm going to reach out to their CEO and talk about us getting together to do that interview because this is such important information and could be a blockbuster for the company. I'm a shareholder of the company. I'm a happy shareholder of the company, and I think they got great things ahead of them. And they're doing a 60,000-meter drill program right now, so they're going to have assay results and news on coming for several months into the future. So have a look at Goliath. All right. Uh, we're getting on an hour and a half already, and I still have all my explorers to talk about, and I don't want to do them disjustice. So what I'm going to do instead is tomorrow I'm going to have a version two, episode two of my weekend report that's going to come out on a Monday. It's just this has taken me longer than I had anticipated. And then I'm also going to talk about So I've got all my explorers to talk about, and there's one, two, three, four, five, about 17 of those to talk about. So that's a show all on its own. So tomorrow I'll do an explorers only show, and I'll also talk about some trends that I'm seeing and the metals charts. And so let's call this episode one of the weekend edition, and episode two will be tomorrow. So, as always, do your homework, speak with your financial advisors. I'm not making buying or selling recommendations. I have biases. I own some of the stocks. Some of the stocks are sponsors. I disclosed all that earlier. But and at the end of the day, I'm a guy who has opinions, and I'm biased because I want my opinions to be proven correct. So keep that bias in mind as well. Fortunately, I tend to get my market calls and my metals calls and my picks right a whole lot more than I do my wrong ones. So I think although I'm biased, I'm pretty good at what I do. But do your own homework. Even if you want to do your homework on me, I'm unlike my peers. I make all of my picks, my market calls, everything available for you to check out how well I do, and do your own report card on me. You can find every report I've ever written or interview I've ever done under the Rocks and Stocks banner on my Rocks and Stocks Substack. You just go to rocksandstocks.substack.com. Another thing that I've recently been doing a lot of is spending a lot of time on the WhatsApp group that I created for my Rocks and Stocks news. It's becoming a powerhouse and a place that everybody interested in rocks and stocks and wanting to talk about it's like a 24/7 mining conference. Just send me an email at rocksandstocksnews@gmail.com, and I'll send you a link to how to join that group. Have a great day, and we will talk to you soon.